Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to Olainfarm third quarter investor conference webinar. Today, for the first time, we are hosted by the new CEO of the company, Mr. Jeroen Weites, who recently joined Olainfarm's management team, and Investor Relations Advisor, Mr. Janis Dubrovskis. We will start with webinar and the presentation of the company, after which we will hold a questions and answers session. If you do have any question to be asked to the company, please type them in the questions box in the webinar admin panel. I would now like to turn the conference over to the gentleman who will proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Eva. Good afternoon, webinar participants. It is a pleasure to present you our company's 9-month financial results and to update you on the recent events. Consolidated sales in the latest quarter reached 32.4 million euros, which is by 17% more if compared to the same quarter last year and by 2% more quarter-on-quarter basis. Our main subsidiaries have mixed results. Revenues for Latvia's Apteeka pharmacies were 6.2 million euros, which is by 11% more than during similar quarter a year before. On the other hand, Silvanol sales were 1.2 million euros, and it is a decline by 2%. Combined sales of elastic medical products produced by Tonus Elast and distributed by Elast Medical were 2.6 million euros, that is by 2% less than a year ago. For the first time in our group's history, consolidated sales in each of the year's quarters were more than 30 million euros. That allowed us to reach all-time record of 98.8 million euros for 9 months. Compared to the last year results, this figure is 10% higher. Our pharmacies generated 19.2 million gross sales, that is by 8% more than during the 9 months period last year. Silvanol's revenues were by 2% less than last year and reached 4.2 million euros. Tonus Elast and Elast Medical revenues were 7.1 million euros and is 1% higher year on year. At the beginning of the year, we disclosed revenue and net profit targets. 9-month results show that we have reached 74% of the revenue target, and including indicative October results, the ratio is 89%. Now, if we look at profitability indicators, then earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation reached 9 million euros in the third quarter, which is by 134% higher than a similar period last year. At the same time, EBITDA for 3 quarters this year was 26.3 million euros, and trailing 12-month results set a new high of 32.2 million euros. Increase in EBITDA due to increase in revenue and also due to changes in EBITDA margin that rose from 20.8% in the second quarter to 24.1% in the third quarter this year. In the third quarter this year, the net profit jumped to 7 million euros, which is approximately 4 times increase when compared year on year. At the same time, total net profit for the 9-month period was 19.2 million euros. There are 3 main factors creating tailwind for the net profit. First of all, improvements of gross profit margin in combination of increase in revenue generated 6.6 million euro of extra gross profit. Secondly, decline of marketing expenses saved us 4.4 million euros. This is mostly attributed to termination of a marketing agreement, which we consider as fraudulent. Thirdly, favorable movements in Russian ruble exchange rate to euro directly improved net profit by 3.1 million euros. The 9-month total net profit of 19.2 million euros significantly exceeds revised target figures announced in May this year, but given that the group's management team conducts thorough review of many processes, we currently do not provide any specific new target for this year. Sales breakdown by countries has been fairly stable. Our main markets, Latvia, Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, comprising 78% of total revenues, with minor variations in the shares of individual markets. In absolute figures, 9 out of 10 major sales destinations are growing. The largest markets added significant amount in revenues. Latvia, Russia, and Belarus added 6.6 million euros in total, while sales in Ukraine were flat. From the smallest top 10 countries, sales in the Netherlands were up due to renewed contract with the UN agency for the supply of past sodium. Product-wise, there have been no significant changes in shares of top 10 final dosage forms. Top 3 products are Norfen, Neromidin, and Furumag Furosol, and total share has remained stable at 54.6%. Most of our top 10 products generated growth in absolute terms. Norfen, Neromidin, and Pas Sodium are responsible for roughly 4 million euros in extra sales, while Furidonin declined by 5% or 91,000 euros. Now, if we look at our borrowing ratios, then both debt service coverage ratio and net debt EBITDA continue to improve. Main contributing factors are already mentioned: increase in trailing 12 months EBITDA, which increased by 5.3 million euros. Cash position increased by 0.8 million euros, and interest-bearing liabilities declined by 1.8 million euros. I believe that such low leverage creates stronger foundation to finance any future R&D programs. So with this, we finish our review of financial results for the prior periods. Now let's look at recent events. So we have finally approved a formal dividend policy. The management board, when proposing an annual dividend, shall take into account 3 principles: stable payout ratio of at least 20% of the previous year's net profit, stability between proposed dividend amount, forecasted cash flows, and long-term requirements of the group, and shall provide information why specific amount was recommended. And now we would like to ask you a poll question. Thank you for taking time. I see that most of the participants support the approved dividend policy. Let's continue. Of course, for pharmaceutical companies, investments in R&D are very important. And during the 9 months, we invested 1.3 million euros in preclinical and clinical trials, which is a significant increase by 74% versus last year 9 months result. 2/3 of this amount was invested during the 3rd quarter. At the beginning of this year, the previous management announced investment amounts related to update of medicine dossiers and to ensure that our products remain in the current markets. Given that potential cash outflows are significant, current management board hired a global consultancy company to conduct product review and advise on future strategy. At this stage, we cannot provide any specific timeline or investment figures for R&D. As soon as the new strategy is approved, we'll be able to provide a new estimate for future capex. As already announced in summer this year, the Supervisory Council initiated a process to strengthen management board with experienced professionals. For this task, we hired Amrop Latvia, which assisted in selection process. More than 20 potential candidates were identified in 10 European countries. Management skills, experience, and reputation were set as the main criteria. Supervisory Council interviewed 7 candidates and decided to elect Mr. Jeroen Weites as the new chairman of the management board and the group CEO, and Mrs. Elena Buschberg as member of the management board and CEO of the parent company, Olainfarm. And now I would like to ask Mr. Jeroen Weites to introduce himself.
Thank you, Janis Dubrovskis, for presenting the excellent Q3 results of Olainfarm. So, as mentioned, my name is Jeroen Weites. I'm coming from the Netherlands, and I'm recently appointed as the group CEO for Olainfarm. I'm really thrilled to join Olainfarm, and of course, I have let's say talk a little bit about myself and a short introduction. What I already mentioned, I'm Dutch from origin. I have a little bit more than 30 years experience in the international markets, so around the globe. I worked for, let's say, large pharmaceutical companies like Bristol Myers Squibb, Pfizer, Sanofi, and within Sanofi, I was also responsible in the region of Southeast Europe for Zentiva, the selling of Zentiva products, and also then, let's say, that Zentiva moved out of Sanofi. What can everybody expect from me listening to this call? Currently, we are working with an international company on the strategy, so on the strategic direction. This company is helping the management board to set the strategic direction for the coming 3 to 5 years. We are especially looking at the top 6 products that Janis also already mentioned. And it's not only about the pharmaceutical products, but of course we are looking at the entire group. On top, we are also looking at to secure our current business, and especially I also would like to mention the business in our CIS countries. And the CIS countries, part of that is, of course, is our important market, Russia. What can you expect from me? I think that's an important question to be addressed. I want to create value for the shareholders, of course. And how can we do this? By not only setting up the 3 to 5 year strategy for the group, but of course, what we need to work on is the portfolio enrichment. We need to identify certain therapeutic areas, selected therapeutic areas, where we can build the future portfolio on. On top of that, we need to think in cost. So cost optimization is an important task what I will look into. And thirdly, it's about the people. I stand for an agile organization. I stand for that I want to empower people and that I would like to bring to Olainfarm a learning organization. The other person I would like to mention also joined recently Olainfarm Group is Elena Bushberg. Elena Bushberg is Russian. Her primary focus within Olainfarm Group will be the transformation of the business processes and the sales and marketing operations, including the manufacturing side. She's bringing a significant experience to the Olainfarm Group, being in Russian and working in Russian market for more than 25 years. She has worked for big companies like Schering Plough, MSD and Abbott, and also recently for Abbott Veropharm. I'm really happy that she also next to me is joining the Olainfarm Group, because I think both together we are a unique couple for the Latvian market, moving Olainfarm further in the right direction to have a sustainable business moving forward.
And our last topic today is related to extraordinary general meeting. EGM is initiated by Olainfarm and is scheduled for the 24th of January next year. There are 2 items on the agenda: recall and election of a new council and recall and election of new audit committee.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. Let's proceed with the questions and answers session. The first question that we have received in advance goes the following. Olainfarm claims to improve its corporate governance. However, in reality, we see that the company no longer complies with the good corporate governance recommendation, which states that issuer shall ensure that during the shareholders meeting, shareholders have the possibility to ask questions to the candidates to be elected and other attending representatives of the issuer. How come that during the extraordinary general meeting, there were no options for investors to ask questions to the board? Instead, the company's representatives tried to run away as soon as possible with bodyguards guarding them all the way out from the room.
Let me answer this question. Corporate governance recommendations suggest to allow shareholders to ask questions during the general meetings. As both the EGMs scheduled for the 1st of November did not take place due to lack of quorum, we believe that we have not violated this recommendation, and any shareholder can submit questions in writing at any time.
What do you think about making Olainfarm share buyback, as the stock price of the company is so cheap now?
At this stage, the management board does not plan to propose such initiative for approval at the general meeting. After a new strategy is drafted, we'll have a better view on CapEx and available funding sources and can reassess share buyback question.
To what extent the steep decrease in selling expenses is a result of the cancellation of payments for fictitious marketing services made in the past? What is your estimated new normalized level of selling expenses as percentage of revenue?
Yes, decline in the marketing expenses is significantly related to the one particular marketing contract, which is terminated now. Overall, we are not disclosing at this stage what is a normalized marketing expenses ratio to revenues. We believe that it's we are now working on the budget for the next year, and after that we might disclose a bit more information about that.
Thank you. Over the last 7 months, the company has lost more than 50% of their top quality institutional investors. Board decides whom to register for an EGM and whom not to. CEO literally runs away from 72% of shareholders, shielded by several bodyguards. With such results and practices, why bother with webinars at all?
Webinars have been a tradition for Olainfarm for many years, and we'll keep that tradition going for the foreseeable future. With regards to changes in shareholder base, we cannot comment. Shareholders are free to buy and sell shares at any time.
Do you have any comments about the refusal of the company register to register Ms. Elena Buschberg as the new board member?
We don't have such information that there is any refusal to register her as a board member.
Last month's good sales to Russia are pre-shipments before next year, as company has failed to meet some of regulatory criteria in Russia. What discounts and extra payment days have been offered to Russian partners importing your products, and how do you see company's sales to Russia for the next 3 to 4 months?
This question, of course, is referring to the serialization that kicks in not just only in Russia, but in every market in the CIS countries and also in Europe. What we can say is that this was simply an order of the wholesalers, and I think that was also addressed in the last meeting, in the last TC of the previous quarter. We simply expect that the Russian market will continue to order our products. And as an additional information, we can share that the Duma is discussing the serialization. It has been discussed already at 2 levels, and the 3rd level is being discussed. So basically, it's already partially accepted that most probably the serialization will be delayed until July 2020.
Thank you. During the last webinar, you clearly misled the public about all employee bonuses being a part of increased administrative costs. This quarter, the costs are still considerably higher than before your team took over. What is your excuse this time?
There are the management is reviewing many processes within the company. There have been changes in the employees in the company, and there have been some functions in administrative way that have been neglected before, so that now being strengthened. So it all requires some expenses. Therefore, but we believe that they'll pay back in the longer term period. As disclosed before, one of the strongest positions which increased is related to R&D expenses, so it's more than 800,000 in the 3rd quarter alone.
Thank you. Do you have any information about Ms. Signe Balder-Silded as a guardian of Emily Maligina transferring her shares for management by a 3rd party? If yes, why such information has not been made public?
No, we are not aware of such transfer or any other transaction by her.
Thank you. Let's wait a minute longer to see whether there is no other questions coming in. With this, I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. Participants, thank you for joining.
Thank you very much.